Hey everybody, how's it going? Long time no see. Thanks for hanging in and showing up. Been a busy few weeks getting out my new course, and that is available for 57% off. That puts it about $29. Nice big course called Triads In Motion, and I'm really psyched with it, and I've gotten a lot of great feedback. So if you haven't picked it up, I would love for you to check out the new course at 57% off using the link over there. Hey BV, what's up, man? How's it going? So yeah, it's been busy. Doing courses is a lot of work. And what happens with me when I start filming my courses is I start filming it and I'll say something, I'm like, oh, or if I'm editing it, because I edit it myself at the moment, I say something, I'm like, I can't leave that thread dangling. I need to go back and fix that. You know what I mean? So that's sometimes where they take a lot of time to get done and get out. In the editing process, at some point I'd like to get somebody to edit courses for me, but you need to find someone who really knows music really well to, you know, 'cause sometimes I'll catch something I misspoke, or there'll be a few takes, so I'd have to pre-edit. Anyway, blah, 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 blah. Thanks so much for being here, guys. I appreciate it. Sorry, so we're talking about the new course. Now, one of the things if you guys are familiar with me, I've got a number of triad courses. So learning your triads is one thing, right? Okay, I know my triads, but what am I supposed to do with them? And in the course, I go into many different things. I talk about primarily four things: Dorian, Mixolydian, diminished, and altered. So we suddenly go from Dorian and Mixolydian, which is kind of pretty, I don't want to say light, but you know, it's basic theory, and then we jump into diminished and altered, which is kind of crazy. Now the reason for that is when I talk about the diminished and altered sounds, we're using major and minor triads over them to show you how just your major and minor triads can be so deep when you're playing them over something like a diminished scale, right? So if I'm playing over on a diminished scale sound, I can get sort of a C sharp major triad on top of E, and it gives me all these great altered tensions that are contained in diminished scale. That made using some of these scales a lot easier. In other words, it can go that deep. I'm just playing a major triad over this chord. So it's how I use the major triad, as opposed to thinking about this new scale and playing the scale and sounding like I'm playing the scale and all those sorts of things. So we start off with Dorian and we do Mixolydian. The reason why I chose those two scales is because of the ones that we end up soloing over the most. I don't solo in Ionian all that much, and I definitely don't solo in Phrygian that much, and we don't solo in Lydian that much, or Locrian. We do Aeolian, but I don't know, long Aeolian jams kind of bore me. I always really love longer Dorian jams and Mixolydian jams. So they're the most fun things to solo over, especially when we're playing music that we talk about here all the time: blues rock, fusion, modern blues, whatever you want to call it. Anyway, okay, so today what I want to talk about is, I got a video coming out on Saturday, this exact thing, but I want to talk about it here. We're going to talk about how we can use a Dorian scale over the top of this D minor groove. So let me call this up. What do you guys think? I got a new camera. Look better? Does it look better? Let me know what you think. All right, let me get the track up. It takes a while to dial in a new camera, I got to tell you. All right, so I've got a D minor groove. Now if I play D Dorian, sounds great, but sometimes when I think about the scale, I play like I'm thinking about a scale. So listen, the scale is a means to an end. It's all the same thing. And the scale is just a way of you knowing what the notes are. But the thing that makes it difficult in guitar, you're like, okay, well, I got a Dorian scale. I'm not playing licks. I don't know Dorian licks. I know pentatonic licks. But it's all derived from the Dorian scale, but I found if you start to think of it differently, like I'm going to play some triads, or I might play pentatonic, or I'm going to superimpose some pentatonics, all these different ways of ending up looking at the same thing. But it's the concept of seeing it differently that makes you play differently. Do you know what I'm saying? So like if I start to think an arpeggio over the D Dorian stuff, it's going to sound different than me just playing the scale. All right, so the first thing is we're going to take a look at a D minor triad. You have that right there, right? I look 20 years younger, good. So there's a D minor triad right there. So one fun thing we could start to think about, we could just hear that D minor triad. Not really exciting, but it looks cool. It's cool because you're outlining the sound of the key. I'm pressing this, I got a mic switch that I upgraded some audio here, and now sometimes when I play music it bounces back a little bit, so I'm muting my microphone. So if you see me doing this, that's what it is. And hopefully I remember to turn the mute back on, or off I should say, you know what I'm saying. All right, so D minor sounds cool. But here's the fun thing we could start to think about. I'm going to start by playing a D Dorian scale, and then I'm going to go up that particular arpeggio. So here's this, the D minor arpeggio, right? D minor triad, D minor arpeggio right from my chord. So I'm going to play D Dorian, which is the same as the key of C major, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. I'm just going to do this. Okay, so I'm starting off with the scale. And now I go into the arpeggio, just the D minor triad arpeggio. Nothing crazy, but listen how that sounds. It's a way of breaking up the scale into something cooler. So by throwing in, knocked over my water bottle, at least it was closed. So by throwing in part scale and part arpeggio, we get a very different sound, right? So now I'm going all the way through. Now I added an D, E, F at the top to get the time right, to finish the line. And that's something you want to think about doing when you're practicing a line like this. It's not going to just happen, right? You want to work on how that line is going to end rhythmically. So there I can do anything I want. I can go partly into the scale, or partly into the arpeggio, and then finish up elsewhere. So up the scale, D Dorian, D minor. I'm going to stop right there and go up the scale again. Let's hear that. Now with the arpeggio. So there I can even focus in on that line, D minor arpeggio, D, F, A, B, C. And then back down. So if I go up the scale, so I've already broken up how I would just approach playing a scale or a line. So I can start to add in the arpeggio. Now here, I'm just taking this short little D minor right here. The D minor triad arpeggio inversions are everywhere. So down here. Right? We have the D minor arpeggio here, and up to the scale. Arpeggio, scale. Instead of just doing scale, or just arpeggio. Scale, arpeggio. Arpeggio, scale. All sorts of cool patterns you can work out. I'll talk about that specifically. I give 30 licks in the course as well, so that each section is broken down. I explain everything I'm doing, give you live examples like this, play it over tracks, let you hear all the things, explain what's going on, and then I give you 30 licks to work through. They're short licks because, for me, you don't want to do really, really long triad arpeggio licks or something like this, because then you spend all the time learning the lick as opposed to the concept of the lick, you know? You know, something like that. Now, the triad arpeggios, when you play them quickly, are a little demanding because sometimes they require economy picking. And I talk about that in the video, and I do give you a notation on the tablature as to which way you want to think about picking. So, the cool thing is if you just even do it slow, this is a 3-note arpeggio. Pentatonic. Right? Dorian. So I'm just going through in each of those and thinking about it that way, which makes it so much more interesting. And it opened up so many ideas to me as to how I can just break up the scale. All right, so that's D minor, and that's the root of your D Dorian scale. It's the tonic chord, the D Dorian. So now the other one that I love using is the A minor triad. So the A minor triad, D Dorian is contained, is the same as the key of C. So all the chords in the key of C are the same as they are in D Dorian. So we have D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, B diminished, and then C major, and back to D minor. Right? So what's cool about that is we can end up using any of those triads. But that's a lot to digest. So let's just talk about an A minor triad, which is spelled A, C, and E. So we're going to put the A minor triad on top of the D minor groove. So we have this. I'm just going to work this one. So I'm going to have A, C, and E. Now what does that give us that makes it sound so cool? So if I'm playing A minor, or sorry, D minor, the A minor chord is spelled A, C, and E. So the A, that's the 5 of my D minor chord. The C is the flat 7, so it's like from a D minor 7. And then the E is the 9. So it gives us this really cool sound. But the coolest thing is, by playing an A minor triad, we're not playing any Ds. So we're not playing the root. So by thinking differently, it sounds great, but we're also pulling away from thinking very D, 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 root, 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 right? So let's hear it. Play the A minor. Really playing it up there just to hear it. So now I'm going to do this idea of the D Dorian scale and then hit the A minor triad. I'm going to do this, then go up the scale. So it's D, E, F, G, A, C, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F. Let's hear that. clams in there, but you hear how that sounds pretty sweet. I was really just playing up the A minor, and it sounds really cool on top. That's the operative word for today, is cool. It sounds really cool on top of the D minor chord because it gives us some other tensions, and we're not playing the root. So it's the same scale, it's just D Dorian, but by omitting certain things or just focusing in on the A minor arpeggio, just even 3 notes, we get this E, which is great. I love that sound, right? And the D minor chord, it's that 9, the flat 7, and the 5. And we're not going. So the more time I can spend on maybe that A minor, the cooler sounds I can get. So the last thing we can just quickly talk about is, well, I can alternate between A minor and D minor, right? So I'm going to think about some of the scale. I'm going to play A minor triad and D minor. So let's just do a very simple lick. I'm going to go up A minor, right? Then just down to the D minor. So, right, so there's my A minor triad arpeggio, A, C, E, D, F, A. I'm just seeing this shape to that. So let me just try to put that in on top of that. Pretty cool, right? So it's just this very different sound that pulls you away from just thinking pentatonic or blues, which sounds great, or straight Dorian, which can sound great. But if I start to think about these little triad arpeggios inside the shape that I'm in, I start to be able to incorporate them into my playing. They're just part of the scale. There's nothing theoretically deep going on here. It's just you're kind of superimposing. I'm kind of pausing on that because superimposing to me implies something maybe a little more theoretically deep than that. But I'm hearing the harmony of A minor to D over the top of D. So I'm hearing in there. Right? So I'm hearing this, right? And I can do it in any position on the fingerboard. So in the course, I don't go too deep into running over the theory of triads and showing you all of them, just because I've got a number of courses that do that. I do give you a printout of all the triads that we're going to be using, all of them in position, the 1, 4, 5s, and very, like, a little more resource there as opposed to going deep into the theory behind it, because I've done that in other courses, and I wanted to get right into how you can apply this stuff in your playing. And when you're doing that, and digging into the playing angle of everything, it really, if you see it, like I said, in the sense of I'm just playing, sorry, I'm just trying to get something here. I'm just using a triad from the scale, and I'm looking at the chords that are in my D Dorian scale, and I'm just thinking about what triad I can play over the top of that. And this can go super deep. It works for any key, any mode, any scale, because they're all going to contain triads. And ultimately, you can use the triad, any triad of the key that you're in, to a greater or lesser extent. Some of them are going to sound really tonal and cool. Some of them are going to add some more tension. And this is ultimately what we're getting to, is tension and release. So even if we get a nice tension, right, or we're kind of hearing it resolve to the D minor. So taking the idea, and I talk about this a lot in the course, of triad pairs, just taking two triads and working through those. Trying to incorporate all the triads that are in a key led to no success for me. I was like, oh, great, I can play 7 triads over the top of this chord. And then I'm like doing, trying to play all these triads and thinking, yeah, it sounds like I'm just running through a triad. I started learning this stuff a long time ago, and then I totally forgot it like an idiot, and then went back to it. Was from the Larry Carlton instructional video. I think it was from the 80s, on REH, where he's, you watch it now, it's filmed clearly on VHS, and, the versions of it on YouTube are multiple copies deep and all that. But he talks about this, about taking triads from the key and putting on the top. Talks about this thing called a super triad. This course, I've kept it pretty, I don't want to say simple, but fairly, simple until we get to altered and diminished. That's why I threw those in there, because a lot of people wanted to talk about those. But there's 2 very thick sections on Dorian and Mixolydian. The follow-up course in a little bit, once this kind of sinks in for everyone, is going to be how to do this in the blues. How do you incorporate a lot of these ideas we're talking about? How you can incorporate using your triads from the keys into the blues, because you're changing keys 3 times. But if you start thinking about it, you can probably project where it's going to go. But that's the stuff that like Larry Carlton does and Robin Ford does, and I'm trying to think like modern blues guys, Matt Schofield, and all those guys who are not playing traditional blues. Now, what I like about this stuff too is it doesn't have to be blues at all. This works great in any jam band situation, any straight rock situation, any blues thing. I said blues, but any funk, fusion, all that stuff. This works perfectly. I think Rock Bottom by UFO, and Michael Schenker's jamming on a big Dorian thing, and he does some of this stuff. He goes through these kind of patterns that really start to outline some other chords that are in the key. All right, do we have any questions on this stuff? It's pretty cool. I love talking about this stuff because I use it all the time. And what I love about making some of these courses too, by the way, is that I learn a lot while doing them. Again, which is really fun. I'm like, oh man, I got to go back to doing that again. It makes, I have to do that again because I've forgotten, or I remembered what I remembered, and it was in my playing. And then as I'm making the course, I'm like, oh, I can dig way deep down back into this and get it together again. All right, so I got everybody's here. Jason Carter, Michael Gilberto, Quincy's here. I got a top chat. Thanks, man. Are you going to be doing any playing near Wilmington, Delaware anytime soon? No. Not as far as I know. Touring is really difficult. Really difficult. It doesn't make any money. I'm not... Just the honest truth is like, if a club wants me to come down and they can pay enough that I can afford to bring my band and then put them up overnight, hitting the road, especially in the United States, is really difficult. I can kind of do it in Europe because a lot of the towns are much closer together and I have somewhat of a network over there. In the States, there's really long drives in between gigs. And so to go down to Delaware, that's a few hours from here. You got to stay over. And then if you want to go someplace else, the next gig is usually a few hours from there. So touring in the States, sadly, for me is not a reality. I just can't afford to do it. It would be fun, but yeah, I can't afford to do it. That's just being completely flat out honest. Now, if a club wants to say, hey, we really want you, we're going to guarantee you this much money, I'll go do it if I can afford to do it for sure, but not really. I do play in New York pretty regularly, well, at least usually about once a month at the bitter end, with my trio or quartet or something like that. So that's the best answer I can give. I wish I could say, yeah, man, I got a tour lined up. I got another tour in Europe coming up in 2027, but hey, Brazil Bush Rocks, taking the course, it's a lot of work too. It's a lot of work. Yeah, this course is a lot. So if you do, like I always say, just take one idea at a time. Just like I did there. A minor triad in that one position, and just play that and work on that. Angus, what's up, man? D minor, the saddest of all triads, for sure. Jerry, I have the new course. It's intense. Yeah, it is. It's a lot of people wanted a more advanced course from me. I've gotten a lot of people saying, you get some more advanced stuff, so there you go. Hopefully people will dig it. Actually, people will dig it, so it's great. Iomi busts out the triad arpeggio in the NIB solo. Sounds totally separate and distinct from the pentatonic and the scalar stuff. You are totally right. Angus Clark, personal friend of mine. This is from S.E. Nesbitt, right? It's a really useful part of this approach for me is keeping from starting and ending on the root all the time. Yeah. Thanks for bringing that back up. That to me is a big part of why these things sound so cool. If I'm thinking A minor, A, C, E, I'm very rarely going to play a D. If I'm thinking D Dorian or D minor blues, I'm going to probably end up playing more Ds because we're guitar players, right? We're going to play some licks and things are going to fall back into that. So I really like that. And what starts to happen is playing D minor or D Dorian starts to get a little boring. You start hearing the A minor and the other triads that are available to you, and you start to lean towards them more. Or you incorporate them, and that's going to push back the resolution to the D minor, back to the D minor triad. So you're pushing it back. Jason Carter, a lot of Jeff's courses fit together like puzzles. It's almost as if he planned it that way. Thank you. Yes, I have been trying to build a curriculum, as you can hopefully see. So there's the one-off courses like, the blues licks course, or the repeated licks, which is important. That course is important, especially if you want to work on this right-hand economy picking stuff. That my blues repeated licks course is really pretty helpful for that, because I talk a lot about right-hand position, getting your picking together. But I'm trying to put a lot of these more educational ones in some sort of sequential order. So I could say, learn your major triads, minor triads, soloing with major triads, soloing with minor triads, which I just solo with each of those specifically, and then this one where I start mixing them all together, So thanks for noticing that. I appreciate that. I like those licks using F and G triads over a D Dorian groove. Yes, so that's where the course goes. Now, in the course, to make life easier, on the minor chords, I use the minor triads that are from the key, and in the major chord, so D Dorian, I use the minor triads from D Dorian, and in G Mixolydian, I use the major triads. And I did that on purpose because it gets hard to kind of use all of them. But there's a section talking about that you can do that. But I focus in on the majors, on the major chord and the minor chords. They seem to contain more tensions to me that I prefer over each of those sounds. But after you do it a little while, it starts kind of coming through. Hey, Chuck Keller, what's up, man? Chuck Keller, my old college roommate, works with Andy Wood all the time. It's great. Sam Stamos, what's going on, man? How you been? Texas Blues Alley, what's up, man? How's it going? My observation has been that musicians who tour all the time have no time to do anything else. It's totally true. It's one or the other. I can't. I can't do this and tour. And when I do the tours, which are very rare, it's just this thing I've got lined up in Europe, which has been great. It's the best way is, the best thing about this is I have the channel and teaching stuff. I get that all ready to go. Worked my butt off to get courses ready, and then I go on tour and release stuff so I can afford to actually go on tour, So the channel does help me afford to go play music, which is actually awesome, as opposed to playing music solely for the money, which I just can't do, or tired of doing it, What's going on? Okay, Guns and Guitars, new to this. How often do you have a live stream? This is great. Oh, thanks, man. Usually every 2 weeks. I haven't done it in a little bit because I was doing a lot of filming to get the course together. And then a friend of mine was in town that I had to go hang out with and stuff like that. So usually every other week. So in 2 weeks, I should be back up. I was trying to do it every week, but then it's hard to come up with ideas, you know? But this has been going on for a while. A lot of guys have been here since the start of the pandemic, which is crazy how this has grown. We teachers call that scaffolding. Yes. What's the best way to get advance notice of your gigs, Jeff? Just follow me on Instagram. I find that that's the best way. I post all the gig stuff there. The reason why I don't post it, I don't do an email list with it, is because I really don't want to bombard people with emails. If you're on my email list, I really try to keep it, when I have a course for sale or a master class, I don't, there's nothing worse than opening up and getting another email trying to sell you something. So, and then that can really kind of muddy the waters between a local gig and then, a course or something like that. So if you follow me on Instagram, that's the quick, short answer. Now I'm going to take a I just want to help out a friend of mine. If you guys are interested, my friend has started a coffee company down in Florida, and it's really good. And Tamami it's Tiam. I can't pronounce it. They pronounce it this way down in Florida. Tamami. That's Timai. It's like Tampa and Miami. And I'm gonna put a link, and they give a percentage of their stuff to good causes, and she's working real hard. And I like her coffee. It's Brazilian right now. They fresh roast it. So, if you're like me and you're a coffee hound, they make great stuff. So if you're interested, there's my friend's coffee. Because I've been drinking it and been digging it. Yeah, they roast it. You get the roast date. So this one's I'm still in between. It's 2 weeks old. It's really good. I never seem to drink it as fast as I drink enough coffee, but 2 cups a day. Any more than that, I'm out. I would be drinking it right now, but then I'll never go to sleep at night. So just throwing that out there. Nick Rainville, do you get out to hear gigs in New York City often? I love New York City. It's been a long time since I've been there, but when I did, the gigs there were happening. Yeah, I sometimes do. I get a little lazy, living here a really long time. And if it's a really good gig, I'll go. And my friend, Sons of Sound on here, he and I go to gigs all the time together just because great guy, and we love going to gigs. It's a good hang, you know what I mean? There's people you can go to gigs with all the time. Like, yeah, totally easy to go to gigs with Jeff. So his name is Jeff. So I go to a lot of those gigs with him, especially guitar nerd gigs. Yeah, I try to go. I'm seeing the opera on Saturday. I'm going to see the Barber Seville at the Met, so I'm looking forward to that. Sometimes I have to remind myself that I live in New York City and I want to go see things like the Metropolitan Opera, But I don't get out as much as I should. A lot of that, like I said, I think you're probably the same. You live here, and after a while you get used to it, and you're like, another gig. All right. This is Kurt Schaffenberg. You YouTube guys seem to spend a lot of time working on filming. How do you find the time for playtime? That is a good question. This is a full-time job, and people think. I have a lot of friends who ask, and I'm not complaining. I mean, it's been great, and I love the community, and I love teaching, and I love doing it on my own. I have all the freedom to put out my courses and things like that, and I control everything, which is really, really nice. But it's a lot of work, and I've had friends professional guitar players, who've asked me like, "Hey, man, how you doing that? Can you talk me through it?" And I started talking through it, and they're like, "Yeah, no, I don't want to do that." I'm like, yeah, don't do it if you don't want to do it, because it is a marathon. Like, you can't just do it every once in a while and then throw out another video. It's consistency. Like, if I never put out another video, maybe some of you guys would be like, "Hey, what happened to Jeff?" And then after a while, it was just like, yeah, just the way the world goes, right? So I have to keep on putting stuff out. You have to stay on top of it. The algorithm is brutal, really brutal. Something that would normally you think is going to do well, or you have a really big video, and then the next week, the next one kind of tanks. And we've talked about this many times. It comes down to your title and your thumbnail. That's it. That's it. So sometimes people say, like, man, why do you have some of those clickbaity things? I'm like, because I have to. I don't like to. I'd rather have a video saying, this is really important stuff to practice. This is really great. I enjoyed, like, this made me better. But, if you do that, it doesn't stand out. So that's really important. So it is a full-time job doing this. And, it's not like 9 to 5, but, I do lay in bed and go like, what video do I need to do next? I got to get the course done. I need to get another course out. Okay, what's my next master class? Like, it's a lot of mental energy. Look, I'm not digging a ditch, so I mean, I'm in a very, I am hugely grateful to be doing what I'm doing, thanks to people like yourselves, of course, for sure, like primarily, and just been sticking with it for long enough that that it fortunately had some success. But in terms of video, editing a course, the number that I've heard is 5 minutes of editing per 1 minute of video. That's like just a general thumbnail on that kind of thing. So so my new course is 2 hours. So yeah, and then you're just sitting there and you're editing and you're like, oh man. I'm pretty fast at it, but I'm not that fast. And templates, I've got all this stuff worked out. But I am. It is important because I think if I were to send out a course, is this interesting at all? If I send out a course to somebody else to edit, which I want to try to do, I have to kind of pre-edit it ahead of time. So how much pre-editing do I have to do? So I have a meeting with the guy who does Keith's videos, Keith at 5 Watt, to see if you want how editing would work. Because I would like to get that time back to maybe create more courses and then have somebody else edit them. So I would like to do that. Okay, Jason Carter. Jeff, really love the spread triad sound. Could you use them in the same way you've demonstrated today? Absolutely. A triad is a triad. So if you decided to do it in sort of like, Eric Johnson, Yeah, totally. Yeah, absolutely. If I'm in the key of D Dorian, I could play an A minor spread triad or a D minor spread triad for sure. And I will. So these are just ways to break up the scale. Now, I like the spread triads because, you're spreading out the sound, But I could also think of just even playing a D minor triad. I could just skip, up and down like that. So, it could be really demanding on the right hand. So be patient with yourself. If you're trying to do this stuff, right? Get these triads together. Excuse me. It's demanding. It takes some time. So that is the right hand synchronization, the right and left hand, and with the economy picking, it takes some time. But the cool thing is, in the video, in the course, I give you all the directions of the picks. But if you take your time and do it, it starts to make sense. Like it really started to come together for me. I remember when I decided to change and do that. Like I need to play this way. It didn't take as long as I thought it would. Does that make sense? Okay. Okay, hold on. If you haven't checked it out, check out Decaf Coffee. Right? DEKAF Coffee, specialized in fine roasted decaf and half calf blends with really good beans. Oh, check them out. I also use Devotion Coffee here in Brooklyn, which is great, and I do the half calf too, which is awesome. But I'm always looking to kind of cycle it around, and their prices went up a lot due to something we won't talk about. Once you get older, it's got to be something special for me to go out and see it. Kind of that way, kind of seeing everything, and I got to be really into it. And plus, also when it's my job, a musician, sometimes it's got to be something I'm into. Like I saw my wife and I went to see Ministry, the band, from the 80s, and she was into it, and I was just there like, I think all this is on tracks. Like, it was fun to go to a show with my wife, and it was fun. This beautiful place called the Paramount in Brooklyn. It's an awesome place, but I was like, I think all this is on tracks, or most of it is. I'm like, he's not singing that. But anyway, that's the problem of knowing too much. Nick Rainville, yeah, good question. It takes me 10 times more time to edit than playing, for sure. What advice, this is Talkridge, all right. What is the best advice for someone who has been struggling with soloing for years, but no scales, keys, cage system, triads, notes on the guitar? Learning other people's solos. Absolutely. The most important, most educational thing you could do. Now, if you know the notes that you said, like if you know how to interpret what's going on, that's important, because then you're internalizing and you're thinking about what the difference is, or what you can start to take the idea of what we talked about today. Or you see somebody play something like that, you're like, oh, they just played an A minor triad on top of that. So keep that in mind. But learning other people's solos, I still do it. I might not learn the solo from start to finish, just to be honest. Like, I might just pick out the lick that I really like, or a little section. But that's the key, man. Being able to play other people's stuff. Everybody will tell you that from the beginning of time, that that's the way to do it. Whether it's, you know, a lot of guys are like, I don't play guitar player stuff. I work on horn players. Whatever works. I don't care. I always learn guitar players. I'm a guitar nerd. I love horn players and stuff, but I'm a guitar nerd. So I figure out guitar players and then try to get it as close as you can and play along with the recording. But your goal is to try to emulate that player. You know what I mean? Like, you're not trying to sound like Hendrix just for the sake of sounding like Hendrix. You're just trying to get the phrasing together and maybe get behind the mental process of what was going on. And so that would be totally cool. The other thing I would say is, there's a course like mine, not to push my course, but that repeated blues rock licks. The reason for that I say that is there's a standard vocabulary you do want to have under your fingers that you may or may not have, but those kind of like, that kind of stuff, like the guitar stuff, you know, boomer bends, whatever stupid name somebody wants to give the classic guitar vocabulary. And that is just being able to, I'm learning Italian now, taking Italian classes. I'm learning phrases. Same thing, same exact thing. So if you get some of these phrases together and you can start to piece them together, then you're starting to build your vocabulary, and then you can start to speak more fluently. So that, to me, I learned that from playing other people's solos. Also, there is no solo that is too simple if it's played well. Like, I'm thinking like George Harrison solo from something. It's freaking amazing. You know, like something like that. It doesn't have to be Cliffs of Dover. Don't even try to learn something that's going to be all your time spending dialing in the technique. Learn something that you can dig into really quickly. I would also try not to learn something too specialized, if you know what I mean. Like, if you're in the blues, I learned a ton from Clapton. Love it. Still love Eric Clapton with the Blues Breakers and Cream. Love it. Peter Green, B.B. King. Kind of difficult to get the phrasing. Freddie King, Albert King, Stevie Ray, you know, all the classics. That's what I would recommend. The opera will be great. Enjoy. I'm looking forward. Last opera I saw was a Wagner opera a long time ago, and I kind of forgot. But I did see. I did go to see my friend's performance at Lincoln Center, a dance performance. He had composed the music a few months ago, and that was freaking awesome. So when you go to those things, you're like, oh yeah, I should do this. This is amazing. Like the Metropolitan Opera in New York City. I mean, does it, you know, it's like Venice. I mean, sorry, you know, like, right. Vienna, Venice, like the places to go. Like, I'm here, go. Berlin, you know, all the big cities. You know what I'm saying? Everything I know about Bugs Bunny. Now, I was having this conversation, and it is totally true. I cannot listen. I was listening to the Barber of Seville while I was walking my dog the other day, and just to familiarize myself. And, you know, you can't not think about, you know, Bugs with Elmer's head, and then, yeah. And the Wagner stuff with Brunhilde and all that. Yeah, I can't. But think about how much you learned about classical music from Bugs Bunny. A real appreciation for it. I filmed 33 minutes of video, spent 6 hours editing, creating title slides, and just last week, I didn't get paid, but I had a lot of free time. Well, yeah. Brazil Bush rocks. I'm thankful for what you do, Jeff. I have learned a lot from you and happy to support your new courses. YouTube gave me access to exceptional teachers like you. Thanks, man. I just got a top chat there. Who's that? Oh, Corey. What's up, man? Corey Forgrave, right? Yeah, it's great to see you in a live started Triads In Motion today. It'd be a perfect next step for me. Wrapping up your Billy Gibbons course over at TrueFire right now. Love that one too. Struggling with the octave triplet lick. Yeah, that one's tricky, right? Thanks so much for the top chat, man. I appreciate it. My old Billy Gibbons course over at TrueFire. Yeah, that's a fun. I really enjoy doing that course. All right, let me go. So some of the questions. People are saying the same thing. I learn songs and solos. Yeah. Oh, also, yeah. Thanks, Jason Carter. Learn songs. Learn as many songs as you possibly can, and no song is too simple. Whether it's like "Dead Flowers" by the Stones or "I Used to Love Her" by The Kid by Guns N' Roses, they're just G, C, and D. But to be able to play it well and then to memorize it's huge. Songs that really helped me. I'm a big Bowie fan. Learning a bunch of those classic Bowie tunes because there's some interesting chord changes in there, and Monsters are such interesting people. That it got my ears to hear this sort of, like in Space Oddity, right? To that major to minor 4, very Beatlesy as well. So when I would be like, oh, and I would make note of that. I'm in the key of C, C to F, then F minor. That's a minor 4 chord. So when you hear that sound, there's a cool, what's her name? Yeah, what was that? Radiohead, that song, right? So that sound on an out-of-tune guitar is always a 1 major chord to a 4 minor. So if you said you know stuff about music, like you know some of your theory, that's really helpful too, to start to identify sounds. All right. Going through. Harry, I just bought the Triads In Motion course, and I really learned a lot in the first chapter. Really looking forward to the next chapters. It's worth every penny. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. It gets pretty hairy by the end with the altered and diminished, but I wanted to throw in some sounds. As I say in the course, and I will say to you today, these sounds, really important to listen to the kind of music that does this. If you're listening to really traditional blues, right? Just, like Muddy Water stuff, and you're trying to put in some of these triads over that, it could be a bit weird sounding. You want to think about stylistically what's the correct thing to do. So any of this is going to work for jam band stuff like the Almonds or Fish, or I'm just bringing out jam band names in. Goose. I've heard people talk about that. I don't think I've ever consciously heard that. Not a big fan of the jam bands. All right. It's a super fun course. The Billy Gibbons course is really excellent. Thanks. Yeah, but as Beaver was saying, learn why the songs work, and that will help stay with you for sure, too. Yeah, like what's going on inside of it. Speaking of Bowie, I'm coveting the new Mick Ronson. Oh, they have a Mick Ronson. Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that. I met him at a party once. I met Bowie at a party. I think I might have talked about it. And I've actually had the opportunity to meet lots and lots of famous people at a job I had worked at, like Robert De Niro and Meryl Streep and all these people. He's the only guy, I think, when I met him, I was like completely starstruck. The charisma off of that guy was insane. And I don't even think it had anything to do with just me knowing that he's David Bowie and me being such a big fan. It's just like he kind of floated into the room like he was royalty, like it was crazy. Never experienced anything like it. Talked to a friend of mine who was there, and she was like, yeah, that's crazy. I mean, I can't even. So I only spoke to him for a minute, not even a minute. That's even generous. 30 seconds, and he was super polite and cool, but, he's just saying hi. Fred Schneider from the B-52s was there, too. He was very nice. All right. Any more questions on this? One thing you'll see it on the video on Saturday when I release it. I talk a little bit in the course. Just one thing that, being a Pink Floyd fan. So let's say I'm going to that A minor, right? Over that D chord we talked about. So I have that A minor triad. Here's that D minor. And if we think about something like that Care Forth That Axe Eugene thing. Right, they do that a lot. So that's that sound. So that really kind of cool A minor chord with the D in the bass. Right, so that's part of what they do to build up that tension in that tune. So that really kind of got me thinking at one point, like along with the Larry Carlton video I mentioned. Right? Over the D minor vamp. Now, do you notice when I got that D in there? Suddenly, I was like, that I was just playing A minor arpeggios over the whole thing. And then when I hit that D, I thought it felt a little bit like a letdown. I don't know if you guys felt the same way. It suddenly sounded kind of vanilla to me. So that was one of the cool things that I started to discover as I did this more. That just sometimes the more, I don't want to say generic stuff, but your standard stuff starts to sound very standard. All right. Any more questions, guys? I got y'all here. Today I am... how's the new camera look? Does it look better? Does it notice you look better? I realized that used camera gear is the way to go. It was way less expensive than it would be new. I didn't go nuts, but it's a much better lens and a better camera. Is it? I think it should be noticeable. I think it's noticeable. So I'm really excited to start to film some videos with it. And gets it a little clearer on the hands, which I think looks cool. Not that I think the other stuff was bad, but I was trying to up it a little bit. S.C. Nesbitt, I appreciate the advanced stuff in there. The challenge is good, and the sounds eventually get into my ears and under my fingers. Yeah. Especially the altered and the diminished stuff. That's a bit weird. All right, so... Right, that stuff. Some of that stuff just starts sounding really out there, but they're just triads. So the cool thing is you can get those really awesome sounds by just playing triads. And once I started learning that, I was like, oh man, like that's what Larry's doing, or that's what Robin's doing, or that's what Schofield is doing, as in John. So the more advanced guys you listen to, the more you're going to hear that kind of stuff. But it doesn't, if you're going to play that over muddy waters, people are going to give you the stink eye. Fun fact: Peter Frampton's dad was David Bowie's school teacher. That's probably how. Is that how they knew each other? Because they knew each other their whole lives. I think so. And had the pleasure of meeting Peter a few weeks ago, and he was such a nice guy, which is great. Thanks, Lyle. It looks great. Okay, cool. I feel like it looks a lot better. I haven't seen it on a replay yet, but it took a while to kind of dial it in. My new video, I found one thing like, oh, I wish I could have done this, but I'm not going to go back and shoot it. It's fine. Astro Music, I'm a big fan of you. Thank you. A few days ago, I started your beginner blues rock soloing lessons over TrueFire. After finishing it up, I'd like to go through all of your courses. Is there a roadmap? Unfortunately, there is not. The beginning blues rock soloing thing I did over at TrueFire, and we never really did a follow-up with them, largely because I started doing my own thing. So, that's on the list of some other stuff to do. Kind of a little bit more, I don't say advanced, but along with doing advanced stuff, I do want to throw in some other earlier stuff. It's trying to get that whole realm. I'm not that you're saying this, I don't want to be, I'm not a beginner guitar instructor. There's lots of great guys out there, and that's not what you're saying. So it's impossible to do it all. So it's this sort of like, to do all of it. So I try to shoot for like intermediate to early intermediate to a little more advanced. But Sam Stamos, thank you, man. Pentatonic deep dive in TrueFire. I think that would be a cool one. If you're a TrueFire member, yeah, for sure. That's a good one. Thank you. But thanks, Beaver, for pushing my inner circle. Thank you. I always forget. I've got my note. My inner circle is you get all the stuff in the channel. You get you get the courses immediately. You get all the courses. You get a seat automatically in all the master classes. We meet twice a month, the first Wednesday and the last Sunday of every month for an open kind of counseling. I give a lesson on something, and we do open counseling. So if you're interested in that, the guys are in there really, really dig it. It's great. I've been enjoying working with everyone. It's a ton of fun. And you can always watch everything on the replay. So that's the inner circle, and that is what BB put over there. Back to Astro Music. I'm trying to think. It's been a while since I've done the TrueFire courses, but oof. I think the pentatonic deep dive is good. There's a Chicago blues one that might be kind of fun. I've got I think it's 32 courses at TrueFire. I was there since the beginning. So, yeah. I don't remember. I'm sorry to say. But so there's no actual roadmap. I think TrueFire does have a learning path. I mean, it'll take you through other teachers, which I totally am against, but you could check that out as well. Kurt, the resolution is good. I can even see the finish checking on the guitar sum. Okay, cool. Yeah. All right, great. All right, so this is at 1080 right now that we're at, but I feel like, and I got a little bit of is the word brocade, is that the pronunciation? So everything's a little out of focus behind me, Oh, blues rock grooves. Yeah, sure, man. All right, blues rock grooves. Playing the changes courses. Thanks, guys. I'd have to look through all of them. Blues rock grooves. I think that's a good one too. For sure. Oh, you know what I think would be great for you if you're not talking about soloing? I have one here, but if you remember TrueFire, I understand, is solo electric blues. All right, so I have one here which is different in my channel. But if you're a member of TrueFire, if you go to solo electric blues, and that's just being able to play a blues by yourself, which I think is probably one of the single most important things you could work on as a player. Bar none. Everybody asks me, what should I work on? You should always work on playing a blues by yourself. That's a big one, because then you're just keeping the time and playing, Right? Being able to sit down and do something like that was one of the most important things I've ever worked on. I still work on it all the time because as good as I am at it, I can hear somebody else play something and go, damn, listen to that. Like, listen that way Jimmy Vaughn plays that. Or, you know, whether it's, you know, it's just a different thing that somebody will do. Yeah, like when Matt Schofield, we play together, hang out, he'll do something like that. And I'm like, oh, man, I got to learn. What was that? Or just the feel. So that solo blues thing, super cool, super cool. All right. So, yeah, that's a lot of info. A lot of courses thrown at you, but I appreciate it, guys. All right, any other questions? I got a video coming out basically on this on Saturday. A little more fine-tuned or shorter. 10-minute video. Yeah, and if you haven't picked up the course, it's a great way to help the channel. I appreciate that, too. I know most of you guys have. I can see who buys them, so I see all the names popping up. So I really appreciate it. It's on sale for 57% off, and that puts it at like $29. 2 hours and 30 licks. And what I like about the course, I think I'm trying to sell you on the course, which I am, of course, but what I like about this course, it's the way I finally figured out how to use these frickin' arpeggios or triads inside soloing. It was like, oh, that's it. And that's what Larry Carlson was talking about. And that's what Robin does. Whether Robin did it, he knows what he's doing. But he'll just play something. I'm like, oh, you did a little triad thing. He's like, okay, I did. Okay. You know, and yeah, so it's just this way of breaking up the scale, bringing these other sounds and doing them over grooves that you're going to play over. A minor 7 groove and a dominant 7 groove. So, all right. So thanks for being here, everyone. I will see you in 2 weeks. That's my plan. And, hey, you know, if you guys have any ideas for new courses. Oh, well, I got you on here. I'm just jumping off the course, but a modal course. Is anybody interested in that? Now, I have to be honest. Sometimes when people when I talk about modal courses, some people say, like, oh, I really want one of those. And then, or they don't. I don't know. Traditionally at TrueFire, if you use the word modes, people would not buy the course. And I want to sell the course. I have to sell the course. So these are the same things with like YouTube thumbnails. If you call it something like, here, learn the modes, people might just tune out. But would a modal course be cool, or would a course on each individual mode that we're going to play over usually? Or one course that kind of covers all of them in a blanket? So let me know what you think about that, because I'm happy to do that as well. Got some other cool ideas. Like I said, triads, soloing over the blues. I've gotten requests for another solo blues guitar course, but a little more advanced, so I'm kind of cool with that. I have to get back to Brett Papa. We're going to do a rock course together, so I think that would be fun. Ionian is the only mode I'm interested in Aeolian. Really? Mode sounds scary, but it's pretty fun once you get it. Just put in the work, and you can do so much more. Right, Quincy, you're totally right. Absolutely. I could do a YouTube poll. That's a great idea, man. I should do that. Thanks, Jason. Forgot about that. Started playing in the late 70s and early 80s, so I learned them in the first 2 weeks of lessons. Well, that's cool. I didn't. I had no idea what they really were until I think I got to college. Then I was sitting in class one day and I'm like, oh, this isn't hard at all. This is actually easy. So, all right, so modes would be cool. All right, guys. Appreciate it. I will see you all. Hey, BB, thanks again. BB's been so great. I've been like texting him. I'm so bad with planning these things. I'll text him that morning like, are you free this afternoon? So, all right, everyone. I will see you next time. Thanks, BB. Thanks, everyone else. And see you guys later. Have a good one.